the Meet the Candidates Forum. This event is sponsored and coordinated by the Scott and Ellis Elementary PTA and the Greenville Middle School High School PTSA. I am Kelly Bucci. I'm the PTSA Secretary up here at the Middle School High School.
I'm Mallory Bell, and I'm the PTA President at Ellis.
And if you are at all interested in bringing your ideas and your information to us, your passion, we would love to have you join us. We could even provide you with an application this evening. We encourage parents, teachers, and faculty and staff members, community members who don't even have kids. Bring it in. Let's go. We would love to have some more people join us and really make our school even more smart and strong than we are. So we want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And Mallory's going to give a little more information.
Before we turn this over to our moderator, we'd like to thank several people who have assisted with this event. Thank you to our buildings and ground staff for their setup, food service department for refreshments, our district superintendent, Mr. Bennett, and the administrative team, and especially our district clerk, Daphne Pearson. We'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for providing the moderator and timekeeper for this event. So please welcome Cynthia Bell, the current president of the League of Women Voters in the Mid-Hudson region, and our moderator for this evening.
Thank you very much. And before we get started, we're just going to go over our process here. And I'll apologize first for all of the delay because there were so many questions and so many really good ones. So I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions. We will be here till at least next Tuesday. But I did try to choose ones that give you a flavor for who your school board members might be. So, okay. Okay, the rules. They're each going to have a 3-minute opening statement, and after that, we'll ask the questions. They'll each have 2 minutes to respond. All of the questions will be answered by all of the candidates. And we are issues only, no statements, and obviously they are legible. Thanks to Kelly. Please turn off all your electronic devices for the duration, or at least silence them. And hold your applause until the end, please. Okay, so Mr. Bucci, I'm not sure how we're going to word this. I'm going to have to call, is it okay to call you James? I don't know. Okay, well, his says 3. Okay, before we start though, I do want to introduce our timekeeper this evening, Sally Coldclaw. She's a fellow league member and my partner in these events. She will be holding up cards to mark 1 minute, and then 30 seconds, and then when the pink card goes up, that means stop, so must stop. So we will get started. We have John Watts to see who is first to speak, and that is Bucci 3.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming out tonight. I appreciate everyone's interest, and thanks to all the people that signed the paperwork to allow my brother and I to run for school board. My name is James Bucci. I've been lived in the district, went to school here, it's my alma mater. Met my wife here at the school, and so high school sweetheart, and 2 daughters who have been attending GCS. One's getting ready to graduate, the other is middle school age, homeschooling now. But Greenville's been my home for a long time. I really love the school. Never had any anticipation on running for school board or being part of anything like this. My brother and I just decided to jump in only about a month ago after just having some different concerns and some different times where the eyebrow goes up, and I wanted to see if we could make a stab at some things. So I'm not really big on change, but I am big on what I think is, you call it restoration. I don't really have too many new ideas. I think old ideas usually work best, you know, maybe with a modern flavor from sometimes, but our platform and kind of what we're thinking about is we have some concerns about taxes. Everybody does, I think. Like to see them a little bit lower, not always going up. And we're also interested in giving parents their rights back, making sure that they're protected as far as where their kids are, where they stand. And we want to make sure teachers have rights to their person. There's a lot of testing and things still going on for teachers. So upholding rights and restoring a focus on traditional education. There's a lot of interesting things, Common Core, critical race theory, a lot of odd things that are infiltrating the school. We want to make sure that they don't penetrate any further. And we're big on the Constitution. We want to make sure that we abide by it, and that weird things coming into the school don't ever supersede that Constitution and the rights of the kids and the parents. That's where we stand. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you. Mr. Finch, you are next.
Again, thank you for all you folks that came out tonight. Must be there's nothing good on TV. MASH is still on though. Just so you know, I'm a retired teacher. I'm an existing board member. I've been on the board for 3 years now. Probably the hardest term a board member could be on the last 3 years. I spent my career in Coxsackie. I taught there for 35 years. I was also part of the Columbia Green Federal Credit Union Board for about 10 years. And I worked on getting them through the financial crisis. And then after that had concluded, I stepped off that board. My wife and I built our home in Greenville because we chose this school. We could have chose a lot of different areas to start a family, or move to our family to, but we chose Greenville mainly because of the elementary school. We heard a lot of good things about the elementary school, and it still remains very good. But I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more about me while I'm answering the questions. But I would be remiss, in especially on Teacher Recognition Week, to not thank the teachers for the efforts they have gone through in the last 2.5 years. We have some of the best teachers in this district. They really have gone above and beyond. And I cannot, even though I taught for a long time, I cannot say to them that I know what you went through, or I know what it was like, because I have no idea. So I want to make sure I say thank you to those teachers and anybody that has direct impact on our students. The other group of people I'd like to thank actually say thank you to is our parents of our children, that send their kids to our school. I have no idea what the last 2.5 years were like for you either. Very difficult time. I remember, you know, maybe some of you folks do too, when you have a daycare or a babysitter nightmare where the phone rings at 6 a.m. and all of a sudden your babysitter can't do what you expect them to do. And so you go into plan B. Well, you know, because of COVID, we sent the kids home in March and they stayed. And all of a sudden, parents became the teacher assistant, counselor, and a whole bunch of roles that oh.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Dyke.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the PTA and PTSA. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I would like to thank the PTA and PTSA and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight and allowing me to have this opportunity to speak. A little bit about myself, because most of you do not know me. I have a background in public education as a special education administrator and a school social worker. I've lived in Greenville for 5 years, and in Greene County, I've lived here for 24 years. I currently serve on the Homeowners Administration Board at Greenville Country Estates, where I live. I am running for school board because I believe in public education, and I want parents to see that they have a school in their community that offers their children an education with a strong academic component, is inclusive for all children, and it's a safe and healthy place to send their children to school. If elected, I will look at allocating resources for professional development for teachers so that they can maintain their current teaching status and teach children at the current level of what's out there in the best interest of students. I want to thank all of you for coming, and I'm sure, as everyone else has already said, you'll learn more about me as we go through the evening and I answer questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, too.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Bucci. I've lived in Greenville. I've lived in Greenville for 30+ years. I have 3 children that are in the school district. My daughter Fiona and my twin boys, Micah and Luca. They're starting kindergarten in September. Some of my concerns, just from past board meetings, from parents and hearing students speak. Mental illness and bullying are some of the topics that have been weighing hard on me lately and bothering me. So I'd like to try and focus some time on that if elected, to see why the bullying seems like it's out of control a little bit in the school. I want the school to be enjoyable for children, and they want to come here and learn. Just from other parents and students, it doesn't seem like it's that way lately. So thank everyone for coming out, and that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman.
Hello and thank you. Oh, thank you. You came out or is watching from home. My name is Jay Goodman. I am a husband, dad of 2, and an energy attorney. In the community, I've served as a CYL baseball coach, and more recently, I'm serving on the Greenville Planning Board for 4 years now. I've been on the Board of Education for almost 3 years, and I'm currently the Vice President. My work as a lawyer has given me experience with negotiations and also with building consensus to solve issues, and that has helped me in my work on the board. Next week, the board is going to discuss an updated policy that strengthens board oversight of curriculum and establishes a curriculum review process. I led the development of this policy with David, as well as other members of the board policy committee. I also collaborated with the board and the administrative team to ensure resources for students to improve their academic performance, and I advocated for fiscally responsible budgets that balance the need to continue investing in our kids with the need to avoid large tax increases. The most important issue we face now as a district is to ensure that elementary and middle school students are working at grade level in math and reading. I have been working with the board and with the administrative team to address this, for example, by approving funding for summer school and after-school help. If re-elected, I would continue to focus on improving student performance. I also would work with the board and the administrative team to review how we ensure career and college readiness, to make sure that's not just a catchphrase. The budget you're going to vote on is the third that I have collaborated on with the board and the administrative team. I also participated in the public budget process several times before joining the board. I know there are concerns about the school's budget, and as a taxpayer, I understand. I have supported fiscally responsible budgets that are within the tax cap and that can sustain investment in a quality education without forcing a decision to cut teachers or staff. That is particularly important when we are trying hard to bring students up to reading and math grade level. A friend asked me recently what I think the value of education is. It's connected to the community in 2 ways that are relevant to this question of fiscally responsible budgets versus budget cuts. Community investment is necessary for quality public education. It creates options and opportunities for our kids by preparing them to choose the path that they want when they graduate. It is also an investment in our community. It ensures that students grow into skilled adults that contribute to our community and our society. And I am firmly committed to both investments. I know the last couple of years have been hard. I have felt it, and I know you have too. But our schools are returning to normal, and we are focusing on our goals. I want to continue helping with this. And I'm asking you to re-elect me so that I can continue this important work. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Yelich.
Hello. Am I, okay, see, I figured it out. Okay. My name's Glenn Yelich. I've lived in Rensselaerville for over 25 years. I've worked as a school psychologist for probably close to 35 years in a variety of placements. I work up at, or down at Bethlehem Central, and I'm going to be retiring at the end of this school year, so I was trying to think about what I could do to use my time more constructively than painting the barn. So I just thought, since I'd acquired a fair amount of knowledge over the years, that this might be a good fit. I've served on a couple of different boards in the past, the library board down in Rensselaerville, the Epilepsy Association board, and I don't know, I found those to be a good opportunity to try to influence policy, and I guess that's what I'm really interested in. I think I forgot to mention, I had two children that both graduated from Greenville, and they both had really positive experiences. And so I'd like to try to give back to the community. So that's the gist of it.
Thank you. Okay, if anyone has their cell phone near their microphone, it is giving a little bit of feedback, so just for quality of sound. I'm going to start off easy. Why have you decided to run at this time? And we're going to start with Mr. Finch. These are 2-minute answers.
Why did I run for school board again? It's a good question. Thank you. Mainly because we finished up a long career with Superintendent Sutherland. She was a personal friend of mine. In fact, I'm so old, I was teaching when she was in school, and she retired. I'm still doing this. And we went through a long process as a board to find our new superintendent, and Mike is going to be a great asset to this school. I think I could help with a few more years, 3 more years to help him get started, and continue some of the great ideas he has to take Greenville to the next level. This is a great school. My mom's a great cook. How do I know that? Because I've tasted other people's food. Greenville is a great school because I've been to other schools. I've been to a lot of other schools. And I've seen what they're like, and I know what Greenville's like, because after I retired, I got a chance to mentor some teachers, and one of them was in Greenville, so I was in this school a lot. That's the main reason why I decided I would want to run. I do have a strong interest in the CTE and the technology programs here. I'd like to see them improved a little bit. The space needs some improvement. I know how to do that, and I think that along with the awesome facilities we have now for our sports, I think they're going to grow our athletes, a number of athletes. I think we improve the space for CTE and technology and ag. We'll grow the numbers in there and make it even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dignan.
I decided to run for school board because I believe in community service, and I believe that I have a lot to offer, especially with my background as a school administrator in special education and as a school social worker. I think, I believe in students. I believe that they can be lifelong learners, and that they can see themselves as learners as they go through school. And I want to support teachers in how they offer instruction to students. And I think at this point, I am ready to get on the school board and do the work that needs to be done to help Greenville be the best school that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, too?
So running for, the reason basically my brother and I were at my dinner table and we decided, hey, you want to go run for the Board of Education? I was like, hey, it sounds like a great idea. I would like to help the parents and the kids of the school be the voice for them. A lot of the parents and kids seem like they're afraid to say things. So I want to be the person they can come to confidentially and maybe bring some of those things up that other people are afraid to bring up at the meetings. Also, I do love Greenville. Like I said, I've lived here for 30 plus years. I love the school. It was fun. It was a lot of fun to go here. And one of the programs maybe that I would like to be involved in a little bit more is the trade side of stuff. So the welding, the shop class, those are things that I really enjoyed, and hopefully keep those programs going. I firmly believe in the trades, using your hands, and just trying to be a good member of the community and do some community service here. So that's basically why we chose to do it. So.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman?
A good part of my time on the board so far was during the pandemic. And as everyone knows, during the lockdown, I hope everyone understands how much the teachers and administration went through during the pandemic. It was really like drinking from fire hose, at least, just to manage the remote learning and all the other demands when we trying to keep on top of what the best protocols were and managing all of it. It's relevant because the upshot is it made it difficult for the board and administration, I think, to do more than we normally want to do. Look at not just what the day-to-day matters are we have to manage, but what else needs to be done that we can do. I think we've turned a corner in several ways. Clearly, the pandemic is hopefully receding behind us. The teachers and administration are, I hope you have a little more of a break now, Mike, but hopefully there's now an ability for everyone to kind of refocus on that. What else needs to be done? The closing the learning gap, the improving student performance. I agree, coming out of the pandemic, there are issues with bullying and mental illness. We also need to look at that, as well as refocusing in career and college readiness. I think that there is a learning curve with being a new board member. We were told in training it's about 3 years. They didn't talk about the learning curve in the pandemic either, but where I feel now we have a real opportunity to do some good work. Between the experience I have trying to pick up on the continue the work that we've been doing, I agree that Mike is going to be a great leader for the school, and the board has really focused on developing its own goals, and we want to achieve as a board with contributions from all of us. And I would be really looking forward to the opportunity to continue that work, working with the board and the district on behalf of all the students and staff, and also the parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Yelich?
Yeah, what motivated me, as I indicated in my opening statement, is the fact that I have a pretty extensive experience in a variety of educational, residential settings. And I thought with that fund of knowledge, now I totally hear what you're saying about the curve, the learning curve for being a board member. But as I said before, I'm going to be retiring, and I just thought I had a fund of knowledge and some desire to try to impact a system that I think I have a fair amount of knowledge in terms of theoretical and sort of applied concepts too. So, I'm not trying to be pie in the sky, but by the same token, I wanted to try to advocate as much as I could for sound educational approaches and trying also to be reasonable in terms of what schools can do. I would reiterate too that I also do think the idea of offering some different options for how high school students is very important, particularly in terms of vocational technical programming. I've tried very strongly to get that implemented down where I work presently, and with some success. So,
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
The reason I am running is I can see some of the reasons out here today. I'm pretty exciting. There's a handful of kids, students that I've gotten to work with at a few different churches, been able to teach religious ed and work some of the youth groups between here and Greenville and Carroll for some years. And when I look at their faces, it's kind of exciting to be a part of their lives and to see them growing up, some of them getting ready to graduate. And I just think to myself, what have I said or done to help them in their life have a fulfilling experience? What have I said or done that could somehow help them in their competency as they go out? And I had a conviction after sending in a complaint to the one of the principals. I wasn't excited about something that he had said publicly in the schools, and it bothered me a lot. And I said, one day to him, you're going to have to give an accounting. Every one of us will. Whatever that last day of our lives is, we're going to have to give an accounting. And if you produced some bad fruit and you planted some bad seeds, whether you did it out of ignorance or not, you're going to have to give an accounting. And I thought to myself, well, what am I doing to protect those who need protection? Am I standing for those who may or may not have the voice or be able to do so? I have my own business pretty much since high school. I went to school for economics. I'm a Christian. I don't know everything, that's for sure. I definitely make mistakes. I don't implement that Christianity perfectly. But I do believe that I look upward for wisdom, and I think that's something that I can bring that maybe some others have not, or a different perspective to bring some balance to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally, this is at 2 minutes, right? These responses? All right. I'm going to blend these questions just because I think they're both good and they're understandable together. What is your experience working with children who have different backgrounds, and how will you work with people who you disagree with? How would you come to conclusions when folks don't have the same view as you? And we're going to start with Ms. Dykeman, and I will read those again for anybody who needs.
Working with students with different backgrounds. So, well, I was a social worker, a special ed director. So, obviously I had students with all different backgrounds, learning disabilities, poverty, and behavior problems. So I pulled resources from other teachers, other professionals. I did whatever I needed to do to help those children get the best education that they could. And I worked very well as part of a team, which is one of the reasons that I want to run for the board, that I am running for the board. I look to other people who know more than I do to help me if I need help. And I can also offer them information from my background and my experience as well. So I certainly have experience working with children from different backgrounds. What was the second part of that question?
How will you work with people you disagree with, and how will you come to conclusions when folks don't have the same view as you?
Well, you really have to listen, and you really have to be a part of that team. And again, I had to reach consensus when I was the chairperson of a committee, and I had to listen to everybody, and I did not know everything. If I had teachers come into that room and they brought their expertise, they were the experts, and I had to listen to them. And I would listen, and then I would pull it all together, and I would put it out there as to what I heard, or what I think I heard, to see if we could come to consensus. And I had to also remember that we were talking about someone's child when we were talking about serious issues, especially with children with disabilities. So working to consensus is something that I have done very well over the years, and it is something that I consider that I am proud of what I did in bringing things to consensus in the meetings that I did run. So I think that I would do a good job as a board member in working towards consensus on tough issues.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 2.
Can you read the first question?
And what is your experience working with children who have different backgrounds?
So honestly, I have zero experience working with children from different backgrounds. Like I said, I'm new to this, I'm green to this. I would like to work with some children with different backgrounds and see if there's a way I can help them. As far as dealing with people that we have different perspectives on things, I want to work with everyone. I'm not here to fight with anybody. I want to be a team, and I want to learn. Like I said, I'm green, and if I can learn something from the board members here to be effective, on this board, I would love the opportunity to do that. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman?
My experience working with kids is also limited. I was a CYL baseball coach for a few years, which I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun working with the kids, trying to teach them the game, and really just all about teamwork and having fun. Otherwise, I have some experience working for kids, for example, for the Board of Education, learning about the needs of our student body, and trying to understand what we can do to try to help meet all those needs. I also, for approximately 4 years, was on the board of directors of Big Brother Association of the Capital Region, and that was, truly an incredible organization that changes the lives of not just the kids that it helps, but the big brothers and sisters who are involved in it. And I'm not going to say that was a lot of experience for me directly, but it just was exposure to maybe a different set of needs, if you will. In terms of working with others who disagree and how do you get to consensus when you don't, I agree it's about listening, open communication. I'm not sure what's going on with the microphone today. Listening and open communication, a willingness to have frank discussions, and compromise. And I think that what you really have to do is if you have people talking about an issue, trying to find a solution, and everyone disagrees, you just have to stay focused on what is the goal, what are we working towards, how can we find common ground. And what I've seen before is sometimes you don't have to agree. You can see that solution from different perspectives. Everyone might walk away from whatever the resolution is and have a different understanding of why it's reasonable or what it is. But at the end of the day, hopefully you've come to some agreement that can work. So again, it's just about communication and listening and sticking to it to the end.
Thank you. Dr. Yelich?
As far as experiences with students with different backgrounds, as I indicated before, I don't want to be redundant, but I've worked in a couple of residential treatment facilities, and where I presently work, admittedly, it's an upper SES setting, but typically I'm dealing with students that have either become disaffected for a variety of reasons or who have learning differences. So I have pretty extensive experience in working with students with either disabilities or who are disaffected from education. As far as how do I work with people who disagree, as Jay said, having served on boards and serving on committees in the school, you just realize that people are sometimes going to agree to disagree about things. And you state your opinion, you give a rationale for why you feel that way, and hopefully it's a well thought out one. And then you come to some kind of a compromise.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
So working with students, been teaching karate as an assistant and a student myself since I was a teenager, well over 20 years doing that, and had opportunity to work with a lot of different kids and adults. Helped out with Girl Scouts for at least 10 years. So definitely worked with a lot of different students, and I can't say there's been this wild array of different situations. But there's just been, I've had a lot of time with them, and I enjoy it. I think the main approach that one we really need to take is really coming down to the perspective of love and charity. So if you're coming at everything from that perspective and you're working in that mindset, then I think that you can be successful. The other side of that, you know, I have a degree in economics, I have an industrial painting company, I work in all sorts of large facilities, work with a lot of different people. We have to get projects done. It's not a matter of if, you have to get them done. You have to find ways to do it. People have different opinions and different thoughts. But at the end of the day, I'm not a yes man. So I am I don't want to fight, but I'm happy to say no. I noticed a lot of things on the board over the years. Things get voted through. Things get yes. People complain about it. Oh, let's talk about it. Let's see what's up. You know, let's hear what you have to say. They still get voted through with almost no change. So if you agree with something and something needs to be done, you're passionate about it, and on a school board you think something needs to happen, you need to make a yes vote, that's fine. But I think the big issue that we've been seeing is, I'd love to work with everybody. It'd be great to come to a consensus, but at the end of the day, I think that's why I'm running for the board, because we need to say no to certain things. Maybe it's a budget, maybe it's a program. That's a difficult place to be in, but someone's got to do it, and not everyone's going to like that. So consensus, I don't know if it's always going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Finch?
I'll address the last part first. Working with others, I think I've been very good with working with others, as long as they agree with me. When you're a really big guy, it's kind of easy then. But no, I've been in all kinds of different committees in various parts of not just school related, different situations in life where you have to work with people, and I really enjoy that. I had lots of opportunities to become a principal or administrator, and I just never wanted to leave the classroom. As far as working with students, I had a parent come up to me the first time I tried to retire. She said, you know, you taught 4,500 kids. Can't you teach 150 more? So I stayed another year. We always try to make relationships with kids. And when you make relationships, you find out some things that are, maybe you shouldn't even find out, but kids are desperate to talk to you about situations. And sometimes you find out that you're working with very diverse people. And maybe you need to set aside the education component and really work with their situation first. I have 30 seconds to go, thank you. I've never looked at a kid as being different. I always wanted to know, are they willing to learn, and can I teach them? That was always the only difference. So I think I've worked with a lot of different people and different students.
Thank you. Now we're going to get into it. What is the role of the school board members in developing curriculum? And this includes critical race theory and health education. And we will begin with Mr. Bucci.
One more time with the question.
Sure. What is the role of the school board members in developing curriculum? And this includes critical race theory and health education.
Awesome. So I think,
no, Mr. Bucci, sorry.
sorry, Ken.
That's a good question. Critical race theory, I do not agree with it. I feel like it separates, it's putting down, I feel like it's putting people down. That's what I feel like it's doing. And I feel like it's segregating people again. That's what I feel like it is. And I don't agree with it. I don't think it should be taught at school. And I'm not racist. My kids aren't racist. My wife isn't racist. And I just don't agree with it. The second question again, please.
This actually is about the role, your role as a school board member. What is your effect on the curriculum that's being taught in the classroom? And these two topics particularly.
So as stated before, I am very new to this, and I honestly don't have an honest answer for you what my role would be with the curriculum, and I want to learn about it and see if I can give you an answer next time maybe. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman?
Starting with the role of the board.
Yes.
The board's role is to focus on policy, vision, and goals. That's what we do. The administrative team and the teachers, they're the operations managers, if you will. They're the ones who actually go and implement and do things. So if we're talking about whether it's health education or any other curriculum that's going to be developed, it's on the administrative team to develop the curriculum that satisfies whatever the applicable standards are. The board is going to look at it from that policy, vision, and goals perspective to see, from that lens, how does what the administrative team has developed match with the standards, what's our discretion. It's a bit of a give and take in discussion there. With respect to CRT, it's not taught in our school. CRT, critical race theory, is a graduate level class that is not taught here. It is not part of the curriculum. So in terms of developing a curriculum around that, I think that's straightforward. I know that there are people who have a concern about CRT in school, and I think that it would be important to understand specifically what is happening in the school that is driving that concern. But in terms of developing a curriculum around it, there isn't one. There's no plan to develop one. For comprehensive health education, I know that there are pending bills in the Senate and Assembly. I think they've been pending in the Education Committee for a few years, which suggests that they're not going anywhere. However, if you look at the bills, what they say is that there will be standards developed, and then the district has to develop a curriculum to meet the standards. And then we're into what we just said, which is the board, from that policy, vision, and goal perspective, will figure out with the administrative team how to develop a curriculum that is right for Greenville.
Thank you. Dr. Yelich?
Not having served on a board, I'm not sure, or the Board of Education, I'm not certain what the function is, but I would presume that, as Jay had indicated, that the board is not responsible for determining the curriculum which is going to be instructed in the school. That's driven by New York State standards, which is in turn driven by federal standards. And in terms of then implementing that or operationalizing it, wonderful. There's room in terms of constructing the courses that instruct that curriculum. But we're not in a position to make decisions regarding that. Specific to CRT, as has been indicated, it's a theory which can be instructed perhaps as maybe a unit of an advanced level course. But that's just it. It's not a social policy or anything that is instructed by, in specific in a school. Health education, once again, I think that should be, that's going to have to be a reflection about what has been decided upon at the state level. And then we're given those parameters and then we instruct within that.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
So we have an obligation with the curriculum to make sure what's being handed down doesn't go beyond, I believe, fundamental competency or fundamental learning, reading, writing, arithmetic, and such. I know people are saying that this is CRT isn't happening. It's being looked at right now in April and in May, and you could call it whatever name you want. But here's senseless. This is something that is being talked about right now to be handed down, to be conversated about. You can pull this up from the Board of Regents. Senseless, brutal killing of black and brown men and women at the hands of law enforcement. It's a loaded statement to me. renewed wave of discrimination and hateful rhetoric for those that are not quite American, immigrants, refugees, a systematic racism that has come to define America's institutions. The systematic racism pervades all aspects of our lives, including policing, education, healthcare. You're defining a system for young people that is creating victims, not victors. If I'm going to be part of something as part of the curriculum for kids graduating from Greenville High School going out to the world, I want to see victims graduate, not people that think that they're part of some system that they can't break through the ceiling. If anyone read the biography for Frederick Douglass, pretty difficult situation equal to be conquered. And we have students right here that have participated in pretty things that sound like critical race theory to me. Here's a quote from Project. Well, I'm going to run out of time here, but what the quote states is, if you are not in agreement with or aligned with or allied to those who, no, I gotta stop. I'll get it in the next one.
The question was the role of the school board, not whether or not you personally agree. So just wanted to make
The role of the school board is to protect people from critical race theory, period.
Okay.
That's
Mr.
my
Finch?
If someone else gets elected to this position, they'll have to go through some training, learn how the board operates. Board operates or governs school through policy only. If you want to have something changed, you have to draft a policy, and then the school has to follow that policy. And the variation of that, any thoughts about controlling any other parts of the system, is just plain campaigning. So I don't really know a lot of the stuff that I do know a lot of the stuff that's being said. It's really not part of a role of a school board. I agree with Jay. As far as I know, critical race theory is not taught in our school. No opinion as to whether it should be or shouldn't be. But that's how a school board works. It has very little control on curriculum. If someone brings up a curriculum issue to us, we would address it. But we don't develop curriculum. We don't approve curriculum. Most of it, 90% of it comes from the state. And through the superintendent. You control things by policy and by whom you hire. You hire a good superintendent, you supervise the hiring of teachers. That's where some of these things are taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dykeman?
So, a lot of what I have to say has already been said. The board does not develop curriculum, to my understanding. They implement policies. And the teachers and administrators develop curriculum following state standards. It's also my understanding that critical race theory is not something that's taught in the school. History is taught, but not critical race theory. It is something that's for higher level learners with, scholarly students at much higher levels. So, the board's role is really narrow in scope towards a lot of the things that are in this question. So they do not develop the curriculum, but they do oversee with the superintendent, how the curriculum is implemented and followed and created by those that actually do develop the curriculum.
Thank you. All right, another blended question. Every year, the approved budget increases taxes. Why have we not seen a budget that doesn't raise taxes and reduces or doesn't increase administrative costs? And the second part being, do you feel that the current Board of Education has been transparent regarding the school budget? And we will start with Mr. Goodman.
I'd like to start. Can everyone hear me? Oh, is this better? Yes. Hear me in the back row. Great. We'll start with the transparency question. The budget is always developed through a transparent process. The documents that are presented to and discussed with the board are posted online. You can go back through this budget cycle, I think through the last few budget cycles. You can see all the documents that work up to what the complete budget is and see a lot of information there. Ordinarily, although the board meets regularly during the budget development cycle to see these documents, which again, it's a public meeting, publicly available documents, it's unfortunately, I don't remember the last time we had a question from a member of the public about the budget. Everything is out there. I understand that it's kind of dense and hard to read through, but it's there and you can ask questions, and it is developed in a transparent and public process. In terms of the budget increases, even if we were to say that we just want to keep things as they are today without adding anything new, next year when we go to look at the budget, it's going to be more expensive because there are going to be contractual increases baked in. There are going to be inflationary increases we have to account for. So even if you want to try to keep what we're offering today flat, costs are going to increase. I think that if you really want to decrease the budget, deliver like a real and meaningful tax cut, it's extremely difficult to do that without cutting teachers or staff. And I think that it's a delicate balance, and that's why I talk about fiscally responsible budgets with small tax increases, because we're looking to balance that impact on taxpayers with the need to keep delivering a quality education, to attract and retain good teachers who can provide that quality education. So we're constantly struggling to balance those two things, the cost of delivering the education with the concern for the community and what we can afford. So we don't have the money like a lot of wealthier communities do, so we have to be very careful with that.
Thank you. Dr. Yelich.
Yeah, education is a service industry, and the service that's provided is provided by individuals who are, of course, have salaries, and those are all negotiated with the union. Having worked in education, I realize that all contracts, of course, are going to have incremental raises over each year. I mean, that's just a reality of all of us in our jobs have the expectation that the following year, with increased experience and greater skills and more time in the job, that you're going to be afforded more pay. So, yeah, those to use the term, are baked into the budget already, because the vast majority of the budget is for provision of salaries, and that's reality. As far as what I mean, when you go to the store, you realize that inflation is a reality as well. And we operate within, the school district operates within that reality as well. So all goods and services are going to cost us more. So while it's a reality that you have to balance, as we said before, what you can afford, what the community is willing to support, and then offer greater options when you can.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
So I think the issue with the budget being transparent, it's great that we can access a lot of the information from what the budgets are. But how many of us have really looked into what the expenses really were? So a budget is a projection of what we spend, some general categories, but if you look at the line items of what was the money actually spent on, line by line? Was it a potato, a pencil, a teacher's salary, a book? What was it? So that takes a little bit more digging. I don't know if that's necessary. I don't think all those expenses are readily posted, we might be able to get them. So I think that's really where we need to dig down. So it's great to talk about the projection, but there's lots of things I raise my eyebrows about, right? So I see a golf cart out by the district office a lot of times. That's a $15,000, $20,000 item. You know, the budget was transparent. It said what was spent on transportation. It said what was spent on different things in general. But what was it? What was it actually used for? Right? And $33 million budget, well, it's transparent, but 73% of kids are not reading at level right now. So, I mean, if it's transparent or not, what's the result? What's the fruit? So I do have some concerns with, even if it is transparent, what does it mean? So I know, at least me as a board member, I'm gonna have to dig into it a little bit more to see. I know our hands are tied. If our hands are tied with contractual agreements, then is there anything we can do long term? I have a plan that as different people retire, different expenses go away, by sunsetting, do we need to replace those expenses?
Thank you. Mr. Finch.
You're going to cut the school budget in order to save taxes. First of all, I gave Janet and Mike a hard time probably the last month about the budget. I am fiscally conservative. I forgot to mention that I'm also a farmer. I own property in another school district. I pay taxes in 2 different school districts. I'm definitely involved in paying taxes. But in Greenville, we control the spending. It's not about cutting taxes, it's about controlling spending. That's what you want to do if you want to have an efficient school. So we set a target of what we wanted the budget to go to, and they were able to do that within range. We're 450,000 below where we might have been. Now, for comparison, we're at 33.6 million. I know that sounds like a lot of money. There's houses in this district that are worth $1 million. But to compare things, CA, Coxsackie Athens, their budget is 34.7 million. Carroll Durham, their budget is 35.1. Those 2 schools are about the same student number wise as we are. Carroll's having a $2 million increase this year. Sorry, Todd, I threw you under the bus, all right? Catskill is $48.5 million. RCS is $51 million. RCS is the largest school, has 500 more students than we do. 500 more students for $20 million. Let's make a deal. Burton Knox Westerlo, they're smaller than us. They only have 674 kids. They have a $25 million budget, and they're asking for $1 million more this year. I think we're doing pretty darn good. And the key thing is for me is, if you vote for me, thank you, but vote for the budget. This is the one good thing we have in this school.
Thank you. Ms. Degnan.
So I've listened to some of the other candidates, and they know more than I do about this budget. But, there are things that you can't predict sometimes from year to year. Inflation, you can kind of look at and see where that's going to go. Pandemic, that was hit us real hard. So when you create a budget, you have to have some wiggle room in it. This year, in looking at the budget, I thought it looked really good. The increase wasn't as big as it could have been, as was mentioned. And it seemed to me that the board was transparent in how they presented the budget and why they presented and put certain things in there. I did watch some of the board meetings and came to some of the board meetings, that I saw. So I think that, saying we should decrease taxes is not very realistic, living the way in the economy that we're living in. So things are going to go up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 2.
So I am a business owner in Greenville too, so I understand the cost of things going up, insurance, everything, supplies, just normal business expenses. I'm not opposed to, I know the budget's there and I still have to familiarize myself with it, but one thing, we'll just say, I don't mind spending money or putting it out there if it's effective. So one thing during all the renovations that happened over the past couple of years here is, this is just an example. The school parking lot in the elementary school. So they redid the entire school parking lot, but it doesn't seem effective. There's traffic going all the way up 32 in the morning and in the afternoon. And I feel like more thought needs to be put into some things before we just say yes. That was just one example, but like I said, I understand that things go up and the cost of everything goes up, but just don't want to be so quick to say yes. Just want to think it out. So.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to do a few lightning round questions. Okay, we have 1 minute for these. They're fairly simple, but I want to get as many of these answered as possible because there's just a huge amount of interest in what your answers. So, in what ways do you, as a board member, plan to support members of the LGBTQ plus community in our school district? And we will begin with Dr. Yelich. 1 minute.
How I would support them is, look, I don't believe it's an issue that the school district either endorses or has either a positive or negative policy towards individuals who, I was just spending time today with a young man who's decided that he wishes to be addressed as a female. And it's one of those issues where you deal with it just as a pragmatic reality, that it is what it is. And as far as having a policy, you endorse the fact that everybody gets treated with respect, people make their choices, and don't make more of it an issue than it is. It exists within a larger continuum. We're a school focused on education.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I think every time we label people with all these things, that it just gives more opportunity for discrimination. It's like this whole bizarro world or opposite land. In an effort to not be racist or an effort to not discriminate, we identify, we give everyone these labels. And now we have to treat everyone a certain way based on those things. Everyone's an individual. To me, everyone needs to be treated with love, however one identifies, whatever label they want to put on it, that's on them. So to me, everything is, sorry, I'm reaching for a statement here, should be judged by the content of their character. That's that.
Thank you. Mr. Finch.
As a board member, I think the best thing I can do is make sure that there's an environment where everybody's comfortable. Every student should come into this building and feel like they're at least safe and at best very, very comfortable. And you do that by checking in with people and making sure that the environment is correct, that people are comfortable being here, that students and staff. Above that, you gotta make sure that you create that environment in a way that all sides, all people are understanding of everybody. And that's the difficult part, because it's really a different way of growing up now than when I was a kid, or a lot of us were. It's tough for kids to be who they need to be. So we need to make sure that they're comfortable.
Thank you. Ms. Dykeman.
Inclusion is a New York State mandate for schools to include everyone. So we need to recognize differences acknowledge differences, and everyone deserves an education in a safe environment. And that includes our teachers need to be safe as well. So we just need to recognize that students have differences and are different, and we need to acknowledge that and teach them in a safe environment, every student.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 2.
I think everyone pretty much has the same feeling on that topic. I want everyone to be safe in the school. Everyone's equal to me. There's no, however you want to express yourself, I'm totally fine with that, and I would be supportive 100% on that topic. So that's pretty contractive. So.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman.
I think I can save some time with my answer by saying I agree that we need to have an environment where everyone is safe and supported and free to be their authentic selves. I think beyond that, as a board member, what we can do, we're a little limited because, again, policy vision goals, we're not in the school on a day-to-day basis. However, what I've tried to do is when looking at the board policies, we have very strong anti-discrimination policies as we're required to by state law. But in looking at those anti-discrimination policies and the code of conduct and other places where we can reinforce it, I've tried to make sure that there's language in there that specifically prohibits, that recognizes that there can be bullying or discrimination based on a variety of categories, and that's prohibited. Beyond that, again, just agree with what everyone said, and I appreciate that we apparently all are on the same page with that.
Thank you. Okay, next is 1 minute. If mask mandates are once again instituted, would you support the school enforcing a different position, even if it meant loss of state or federal funding? And we'll start with Mr. Bucci, 3.
We have to uphold the Constitution. We need to preserve people's rights to their kids, to make decisions for their kids and their health, period. So if someone wants to send their kid in with a mask, they should wear a mask. That's what mom and dad said. If someone said doesn't feel that that's important, feels like that is unhealthy for their child, that has to be respected. If the school's going to lose money, we can't make decisions based on outcomes. We have to make decisions based on our duty, based on our obligations, based on the oaths that we take, including an oath to the Constitution of the U.S. and to the state of New York. And, so that is up to the parent.
Thank you. Mr. Finch.
I think you said that if the Band-Aid is reinstated, right?
Yes.
If there's a mandate, the mandate's a law, school is law. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Dyckman.
If a mandate for masks is put back in place, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Correct.
So if masks are put back in place, again, it's safety. And if someone above us in the health department, county or state say that masks need to be worn, it's safety for staff, and we need to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 2.
I'm 100% against the mask mandate, and I believe that the individual child's parents, that's a strong topic for me, because I tell you what, the sigh of relief when they said that you didn't have to wear that mask anymore when my daughter got home from school was like priceless. Case in point, there was an incident the other day on one of the school buses, and she comes home and she goes, "Dad, thank God that you drove me to school." And so why is that, Fiona? And she goes, because there's a case of COVID on the bus, and now these kids have to wear the mask for 10 days. So, yeah, I'm definitely against it. Just putting that out there, and that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman.
It's not a question of mask or money for the school. If there's a mandate, there's a legal obligation to follow it. If anyone wants to talk about why it's a legal obligation, I'll be around after the meet and greet and can talk about it. We can explain it even if we disagree. That said, in terms of obeying the Constitution, as a board member, when you're sworn in, you swear an oath to uphold the laws and the constitutions. We don't get to pick the laws that we want to follow, and we don't get to pick the interpretation of the Constitution. That's done by the courts and legislature. So even if we disagree with the law or think that it is against the Constitution, we swear an oath to uphold it. Myself and David and other board members did that at all times. I think that if I disagreed with it and felt strongly enough about that, then I think it would be far more effective for me to go to Albany and talk to the elected officials who I think would listen more to me as an individual, as a voter and a donor, than to me as a representative of a small town school board.
Thank you. Dr. Gillis?
And applaud, I agree. I mean, the mask mandate is not an issue which is decided at the level of the educational system. If it's decided upon by the responsible entities and the policy is put in place, then you do it. I mean, I was working with a kid several weeks ago who, with the mask, I could not understand, and he was muffling speech, and I was thinking to myself, how do speech teachers work with students who are having articulation difficulties when they're wearing a mask? I just realized it's a pragmatic reality, and if the mandate came back, you would have to institute the policy, and you may not like it, sour grapes, but deal with it.
Thank you. I don't know who's crackling. Who should decide, this is your last 1 minute question. Who should decide on acquisitions for the school library? Should the librarian have the freedom to choose materials? Mr. Flynn.
Acquisitions for the school library. Does this have to do with selection of books?
I would assume that.
I don't think we're in the 1950s anymore. I think we're in the 2020s. And I think that for me to choose a book as a board member for somebody else, probably not appropriate. I think actually if a kid brought home a book in a school setting, mom or dad didn't like, mom and dad takes that book and sets it aside, explains the issue, and returns it to the school. Enough said. But I'm not going to take that choice away from someone else that wants to grab that book in the library and take it home and enjoy reading it. One of the most disturbing things I heard a while back was on Dr. Seuss's 100th birthday, they started saying that his books were not acceptable anymore. It was almost like being a green dog and a blue dog made the yellow dog feel bad. I didn't understand that either, and some of those books were actually taken off. But that's not up to me.
Ms. Dyckman.
Well, the school board doesn't have a say in the books that are in the library. I mean, that isn't a role that I believe the school board would take on. The school librarian certainly knows what's out there and certainly has some authority, I imagine, to stock her shelves as she sees fit. And then teachers and parents also need to be involved in what books they want their students or their children to read or not read as appropriate for their developmental and academic level.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, you too.
I don't think the librarian should be able to pick and choose all the books in the library. Again, I don't know if that's just, if you can vote on that as a school, if you put it out there, a list of books, it's going to be a ton of books, but I guess topics and... My daughters come home from school, different books that she loves reading. She comes home and stuff, we read every night, and some books I'm like, oh my gosh, why is this in the library? But I guess to each his own. I don't think the librarian should be picking all the books for the library. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman.
I
I agree that the board doesn't, it's not the role of the board to pick which books are in the library. But I think here at Greenville, we truly are lucky that we have a great group of really expert educators. And I have full faith and confidence in their ability to draw from their expertise in education to, whether it's the librarian or the administrative team or others, to make sure that the library has age and developmentally appropriate books for the students to read. And I think that we as parents also should be keeping an eye on what our children are reading and discussing them with them if they are reading anything with challenging topics.
Thank you, Dr. Yelich.
Yeah, as far as selection goes, that's driven, I'm presuming, by recommendations from staff who believe it's either something that they're going to be instructing or something that is relevant to the content. As far as the librarian being able to make those decisions, I don't think that's a reality, either theoretically or in practice. It's just, it's a system which is influenced by a lot of other things, as far as getting into any kind of literacy, becoming a literacy police, as far as the board's function. Sure, there's certain content that is not appropriate for a high school or a school library, but whether that should be dealt with at the level, building level, rather than at the board level.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
I'd like to think that as teachers and administrators are hired, they're vetted, and the people who are bringing them into the school system have a lot of faith in those people, in those folks. And so I would have confidence that a librarian would have a good pulse of the different things that are out there, different options, different opportunities, bring about different genres and opportunities for kids to read all sorts of neat stuff. At the end of the day, though, there's a lot of movies out there. Are you cool with every rated X movie, every rated R movie being in the school? So, I think this question is driven by some really graphic, pornographic books that are out there and being put on schools right now. And I think that needs to be looked at. Also recognize that over the years, there's been a lot of book burnings at schools. They might not have a fire in the front yard, but libraries are cleared out of a lot of historic stuff. So if we can't pick them, someone else can choose what ones get thrown out. There's a lot to that question. What do you think? Thanks.
All right, final question. There's 2 minutes and then we'll go on to our closing statements. The last 2 years have been extremely challenging for everyone and have created stresses within our school community. How would you, as a board member, help to build or rebuild trust and a positive sense of community going forward? And how will you encourage more parents and community engagement? I'm happy to read this again, but we'll start with Ms. Dyke.
Well, there have been a lot of stressors in the last 3 years, certainly. The pandemic was really, really rough on everyone, and students in particular. So it may take some time, but I think that parents and teachers, parents need to feel comfortable in the school, and the more we do to encourage parents to come into the school for events or those types of things, to talk with them, to let them see that we really want to partner with them in teaching their child and listening to them. It's very important that we listen to parents so that we can gather information as educators from them about their child. What do they want to tell us? Because that is the best way that we're going to be able to teach their child, is to gather that information. So we really do need to work on building a strong, trusting relationship with the community, with parents, and to help our students be successful and to achieve by doing that, and trying to engage parents with any way we can to let them know that we're partners with them to teach their children.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, too.
Can you read that question one more time?
I sure can. The last 2 years have been extremely challenging for everyone and have created stresses within our school community. How would you, as a board member, help to build or rebuild trust and a positive sense of community going forward? And how will you encourage more parent and community engagement?
Another good question. Giving the kids a choice, I mean, I can go a million different ways. I feel like it's going to be hard to get that trust back. It's going to take a long time I feel like a lot of damage has been done over the past 2 years, and I honestly don't have an answer for that. But I think that it's going to take a while to get that trust back.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman.
I agree that we need to rebuild that trust and the communication and the sense of positive community. One of the reasons that I'm running again and want to be reelected is, although it may not be apparent now, the board has already started working on this, and I want to continue that work and be a part of that change that we're trying to make. So what is it that is being? The board, thanks to the leadership of our president, Tracy Young, has developed our, we've decided on annual goals. And one of the goals that we're working on is how to better communicate with the community, how to better react. It's really about building that, trying to rebuild that trust, trying to rebuild that sense of, one whole community, in this together, working together, despite the strong differences. Again, going back to the question at the beginning, we might have to agree to disagree on certain issues, but we still have to try to find a way to come together as a community. And that's part of what we are trying to do by figuring out ways for the board to change its practices so that we can have more of that discussion, try to rebuild some of that trust and that positive sense of community. And I think we're in a great position to do that with the dedication of board members that we have, with the administrative team, and I'd like to be a part of that. And it's unfortunate if I don't have the chance to be, but I hope to watch it continue if I do.
Thank you. Dr. Yelich?
Yeah, as far as rebuilding the trust, I'm not familiar with the issues specific to Greenville, having worked in, not having children here, I guess I should say presently, but working in another public setting, in another public school setting, it can be an issue where decisions are made and maybe they're not always communicated as clearly, and then people begin to make assumptions about things without having full knowledge. So I guess what I try to do is just to be as clear with everybody about what the rationale is for why the decision was made. There are no hidden agenda, and that this is the decision that's made. People may not always agree with everything you're going to be putting forth, and try to realize that we're all in this system for a reason, with a goal that I think we all have a shared one, that we want to try to afford the best education we can for the children that are here, and just realize that and be as honest and upfront as you can with people.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
So I know I'm outside of the system. So it seems like a lot of the answers that we're hearing are, our hands are tied, there's nothing we can do about that. We'll have to petition the governor, we'll have to take that to a different entity. I think trust comes when you're not always making an excuse and you're saying, okay, I'm not sure what I can do, but let me figure it out. So if we can't do something, then let's make an effort to petition. If we can't defend our teachers, then let's petition the government to make a change as a board. If we can't change a contract, well, let's plan for the next contract, whatever it might be. Right now, it sounds like we don't have control over the curriculum, we don't have control over the books, we don't have control over contracts, we don't have control over what gets put on our face, the faces of our children. If we don't have control over everything, what is the point of the school board? Just to go ahead and push the budget through to make sure it's okay? And I refuse to believe that, I don't care what training it comes with the board or whatever it might be. If there's no power whatsoever from the school board, then we need to go figure out how we can get that power back. That's how we're gonna build trust. It's just gonna be more of the same. Who's gonna trust that? What efforts are we putting in? I'm not saying that the members of the school board don't work hard and don't do research. They do. And it's a thankless job. And if I was to be in that position, I'm not saying I'm gonna have all the answers. But we can't just keep saying that our hands are tied. This is the system that we're stuck in, and that's that. I know there's realities to that, but that can't be the end-all issue. So building trust back, standing up and trying to change it if it's really an issue. Let's go change the system. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Finch.
First we have to identify who we want to build trust with, and as a school, we want to, our key stakeholders are our parents. We want to build trust back with the parents, and I really think, even though the meeting we had in March was a little bit contentious, I don't think it had solely to do with masks. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that some of the parents that showed up, but I got a feeling that a lot of parents in the community were just worried that their kids were getting farther and farther behind. I worked with Superintendent Sutherland probably in May after the lockdown started, and I said, geez, Tammy, these kids, these first and second graders, they can't learn over the internet. I mean, they're falling farther behind, and that's where we are now. So working with the parents as a team and the teacher-parent team is where we're going to start building trust and getting the kids back where they need to be. And that will happen. Kids have an abundant ability of responding and growing. They will learn regardless of what sometimes adults do. And then you go to the community and you try to educate the community that our school is a precious commodity. It's an asset to the town. And the budget is what we need to spend to have a great school. And I'm not sure that in the past Greenville was where it should have been. And I know that because I went to a lot of different schools and saw what those schools had, and we come back here and saw that we needed improvements.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for staying all this time. We are coming down to the end. We will have our 2-minute final statement. I hope that's okay with y'all. And we're going to start with Mr. Bucci, too, for your ending statement.
First of all, thank you everyone for coming out and having this meet the candidates. It's pretty nerve-wracking. I'm up here shaking, but I'm freezing. Yeah, looking for your vote on May 17th. As I said, I'm passionate about the kids. I'm passionate about this school. I love this community, and just like the opportunity to be on the Board of Education and try and keep everyone happy. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman.
The board's hands aren't tied. We just have to work within the scope of our role, policy, vision, and goals. We can give direction, we can ask for information. It's a bit of a give and take with the administration in terms of us approaching it from that perspective and working with people who actually have to go and implement and do the thing. Our hands are tied to the extent that, I agree with obeying the Constitution and following the law, and, we do have to do that, but there's a lot of discretion within that. And I hope that Although I think whatever decision the board makes any time, I'm sure there are people who will disagree with it. Sometimes it's a small disagreement, kind of like, not that big a deal. Other times, obviously, it's much more concerning to people. I hope that it is not always the case where if the board makes a decision where someone disagrees with, it's perceived as they're just yesing it, they're just rubber stamping it, or their hands are tied. That is not the way it usually works. And I have always tried to approach my role as a board member as not rubber stamp, ask questions, try to challenge, push back, dig a little deeper. That is something that I would continue to do if reelected. As I said, during the pandemic, everyone was really overwhelmed with dealing with the COVID mitigation protocols and everything else. And I think that now we're in a really great position to take what we have been able to get done over the last few years and really use that as a leaping off point to do a lot more. And I hope to be able to be a part of that with refocusing on improving student performance and focusing on making sure that we're preparing students for careers in colleges and addressing some of the other issues that we've talked about today. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Yalish.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I guess I would like to have the opportunity to, pardon me, I'm up past my bedtime. I guess I'd just like to reiterate that serving on a board is a thankless task. Having served on two before, I'm kind of questioning my sanity at 81 doing this. But no, I feel like I have a fund of knowledge that could help drive things. I certainly realize that the function of serving on a board is constrained by a lot of factors. You express your opinion. You realize that people are always going to have differing opinions. You try to be as upfront and honest as possible. Obviously, there's some issues you can't discuss out in public that are personnel issues, et cetera, but as much as possible, you try to present all the facts, and so that people don't think you have any hidden agenda or that you're motivated by some other factors other than what you have to deal with.
Thank you. Mr. Bucci, 3.
Well, thank you also, everyone, for coming out. Thank you for all those who have supported us. I've been pretty excited to be able to work with my brother and to go at this together. There is an opportunity here. There's 2 seats that are open up for the board on May 17th, and so there is an opportunity to bring a little more balance by getting 2 Buccis in on the board. So I'm definitely excited about that. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I would love to work with the board, and if nothing else, whether we get elected or not, I have to say that I don't think I've seen so much buzz for a board situation. So by having people run with differing ideas, it puts, I believe, good stress, good pressure on everybody there to bring some good ideas to the table and to hash them out. So I'm excited about that for our community, whether we are elected or not. So thanks, everybody. Please go to jamesbucci.com on the video, and anybody else, if you have any questions, because I believe there were 70+ questions that were submitted tonight, apparently. And so if you have any questions, I would love to answer them for anyone who wants to ask. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Finch.
First of all, for me, the key thing is that you vote. Everybody votes. And then you vote for the budget. You vote for the budget. If you have questions, if you're thinking, geez, I'd like to vote no, at least I ask you to do some research. All of the documents I see as a board member are on the website. That young man in the audience said he went to Daphne and got the entire budget package from the district office. It's law that it's all available to you. So there's nothing hidden. Anything you want to see that I see, it's available to you. if we had to go through a contingency budget, we could cut first. But in Greenville, it's so tight that if you cut a teacher, you're cutting the program. You cut Aaron Sharkey, for example, I don't want to use her, but you're cutting the IB science. If you cut a elementary teacher, you cut a 4th grade teacher, you're going to put all those kids into 3 other or 4 other elementary classrooms, and you're doubling the size. That means that that teacher will not get to see one of those, or all the kids individually, that much less time. Those of you that support me in the past, thank you, fine, it's great. It was a very challenging term. I'd love to do it again. I'd love to have COVID not around. I don't know if that's going to happen. I pray that it goes away. I also pray that it doesn't foster a different issue. But vote. That's the key thing. And encourage your neighbors and anybody else. If they have any questions, come to a board meeting. I don't know how long I've been encouraging people to come to board meetings and talk, ask. No one shows up. We stand there or sit there and do nothing for a while. Hoping people come. I know.
So, student achievement is a priority for schools. And I would like to be on the board, to work with the board, to implement policies and programs to improve student achievement, because there's always room for improvement. I would also like to work with the board on strengthening the relationship between parents and the school district, the community and the school district. Keeping parents on decision-making committees and bringing them in that way. I am really looking forward to working with the board, even if I don't get elected, to be on a committee, to do something that supports the school district as a vital part of the community. And that's what I'm looking forward to do, and I would like to be elected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before you go, I did want to acknowledge our excellent timekeeper, Ms. Adams. You did an amazing job. You should all really be honored by her presence. I've done a lot of these, and she did an extraordinary job. And honestly, the audience for the great questions and the care and the panel. You guys are good. You're very distinguished yourself, and I thank you for coming tonight.
So as James kind of alluded to, I had over 70 questions emailed to me before tonight. That doesn't take into account what got put out there because I didn't even get to see those yet. They went right to the moderator. If you really feel strongly that something you wanted to know was not addressed, these candidates have graciously offered, or they've agreed when I offered, you can come talk to me. We'll get your question out of the pile. I'll compile some more, put them into a written document, email it to the candidates, give them a couple days. They'll give me some answers back and we'll get those put on social media. So if there is something, please don't give me another 70 questions. My toddler was really mad at me this week. But if there's something you truly felt was not addressed tonight, please come talk to me and we'll get that settled. And also, like I said, come to PTSA and PTA. We would be happy to help you out with the starting point of getting things talked about and addressed. Thank you.